as you should know as a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, is that there is a lot of misconception within the lore of this game. Hey guys, FNAF22 here with our video, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about common Five Nights at Freddy's misconceptions. There's a lot of things that random people who don't know a lot about the lore, or just outside sources like news articles, get very wrong about these series, and I want to start with things that don't matter as much, going down to the reason I made this video. Starting off with the first FNAF misconception, we have that Twisted Chica isn't real. Now, not a lot of people know this just because they don't read the books. I mean, I don't even read them myself, but when there was art released for the Twisted ones, all these characters, we saw Twisted Freddy, Twisted Bonnie, Twisted Wolf, and Twisted Chica. But if you ever read the Twisted Ones book, Twisted Chica is not even a real character. They don't even exist. So it's kind of weird that art and even merchandise like pops and plushies were made for this character when they're not even a real character in the lore. Now, another common Five Nights at Freddy's misconception are canon names for certain characters. A lot of characters don't get named right off the bat, as Scott just has kind of code names for them, and then the fans or the community ends up naming those characters. So, for example, some good examples are like the Freddles from Five Nights at Freddy's 4. They were originally named Mini Freddys by Scott Cawthon, but because the FNAF community started calling them Freddles, he kind of just took it and ran with it. Another very common and popular one was Golden Freddy. Originally, when he was made, Scott named him Yellow Freddy, but because of his popular surprise in the Markiplier video, all of Markiplier's community, as well as the rest of the FNAF fandom, would start calling him Golden Freddy, which Scott changed his name from Yellow Freddy to Golden Freddy. But sometimes when fans try to stick a name to a character, it doesn't work as well as these last ones. For example, we've got Mangle from FNAF 2. Now, when Mangle was fully built, a lot of people thought she would, or he, whatever, would be called Toy Foxy, just because all the other characters, we had Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica. Why wouldn't they call this new version of Foxy Toy Foxy? Well, come to find out with merchandise and stuff that the fully built version of Mangle was actually named Funtime Foxy, which in the FNAF fandom, as you should know, is kind of weird because a few games later in Five Nights at Freddy's sister location, all the characters would be named the Funtimes, like Funtimes Freddy and Funtime Bonbon, or whatever you want to call them. But for some reason, the Foxy in that game was also named Funtime Foxy, which means technically, in the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, we have two different versions of Funtime Foxy. One that was the fully built version of Mangle from FNAF 2, and the one from Sister Location. Another huge misconception with this series, and this is one that I've been seeing a lot more recently, is that gore is important to Five Nights at Freddy's, which is very wrong. If you ever played the original games back in 2014, 2015, when they were released, they weren't really built on gore. I think the reason that a lot of people think Five Nights at Freddy's is way more gory than it really is because of like analog horror tapes and because of the YouTube community. A lot of people on YouTube, when they make VHS or analog horror tapes of Five Nights at Freddy's, they tend to make it very gory, lots of blood, lots of murder, and lots of gory things. Now, don't get me wrong, Five Nights at Freddy's story has had little bits of gore here and there, but it's never really showed it and never really been built on that goriness. And I think that's why a lot of people don't really understand the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, because a lot of newer fans were upset that the movie wasn't super gory like all these YouTube versions of the movie. But in all honesty, Five Nights at Freddy's started with subtle horror. They never really had blood and guts everywhere. They always had little bits of horror that kind of just off-center you, as well as with the jump scares. So I think when FNAF gets newer and newer to more people, a lot more people think it's way more gory than it's ever really been. Now, once again, another huge common misconception in the Five Nights at Freddy's community is the bite of quote-unquote 87. Now, in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, there is a huge moment when the main character, the crying child, gets put up to Fredbear's mouth, and Fredbear decides to take a little chomp on him. And in this moment, it was titled The Bite of 87, or The Bite of 1987. And the reason that this phrase got really popular was because of Markiplier's playthrough on FNAF 4 with this very iconic moment.
On 3, 1, 2... that the bite of 87?
And because of that iconic moment and that iconic meme, everybody started calling this the bite of 87. But when you dug a little bit deeper into the lore of FNAF 4, you'd find out the game actually takes place in 1983, making this bite the bite of 83, and the bite of 87 would actually be something that happened relatively later in the series, more around the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 days, which leads people to think like Mangle or Toy Chica actually did the bite of 87. I know it's kind of confusing, but pretty much the whole common misconception here is that Fredbear did not do the bite of 87, instead doing the bite of 83. And the biggest common misconception in my eyes of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and the whole reason I even wanted to make this video, was that everybody thinks Five Nights at Freddy's was based on true events. Now, obviously, when I say everybody, I don't mean everybody. This is kind of a broader term. It's a lot of news articles and other people who aren't really in the fandom and don't really understand. Now, a lot of people believe that FNAF was based on a true story of a murdering that happened at a Chuck E. Cheese in 1993. Now, I could totally be wrong on all these details, and I could, once again, totally be wrong here, but I think what happened was there was a night guard who was upset. He worked at a Chuck E. Cheese in Colorado, and he was upset about his hours or wages or something, so he ended up pulling out a handgun and unfortunately taking the life of 3 people and injuring 1 on top of that. Now, because Five Nights at Freddy's takes place in a pizzeria, just like Chuck E. Cheese, and the whole story is about children getting murdered and then getting put in these suits, a lot of people tend to say that this unfortunate event that happened in Colorado is what Five Nights at Freddy's is based off of, and that they try to mix the stories up. But really, Scott Cawthon has said multiple times in multiple different interviews that Five Nights at Freddy's is not based on any true events. It was just an idea he had because in a comment of one of his older games, Chipper and Sons Lumber Co., a lot of people said the characters look scary and it could be a horror game, so that kind of gave him the idea to make an animatronic horror game. Don't get me wrong, his idea for animatronic characters like a bear and a chicken and a bunny could be based loosely off Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know if he's ever confirmed or denied that, but this whole event that happened in 1993 is not what FNAF is based off of. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you always be notified for when I drop another video. And let me know in the comments down below, what are some other big common misconceptions in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise? I just thought it'd be a fun idea because I always see a lot of people who are on the outside of this community who think that this story was real, and it made me think there are a lot of common misconceptions with this franchise. Also, real quick before I end this video, I don't know if you guys saw my short from a few days ago, but I finally have my first ever PC. I ended up saving and buying my first ever PC, and now I kind of have my whole PC setup. So this will probably be the last video you guys ever see recorded and edited on my phone, just because I'm going to start moving into editing and recording videos on my PC. I might still use my phone to record sometimes, but all the editing is going to the PC, which is going to be super, super cool, and I'm super hyped for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces!